Now please welcome Oliver Bendig, CTO of Matrix42. His topic is how to manage the future workspace, the era of living services, new technology trends that impact the future workspace. As the CTO, Oliver Bendig is responsible for product strategy, roadmap, and continuous development of Matrix42. He advises clients about IT service management and infrastructure management, focusing on cloud, virtualization, and business mobility. How to manage future workspace, the era of living services. The Internet of Things, mobility, and cloud, digital technologies change the way we work. Living services that are personalized and contextually aware will be the next wave in workspace management, predicting and reacting to changing business needs. How will new technologies impact our future workspace, and how can IT efficiently manage it? Oliver Bendig, CTO of Matrix42, will give you an outlook. Please welcome him.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the introduction. I guess we win definitely on title and description of the title. Thanks, guys, for joining. I have a very exciting topic with me, and I hope it will excite you as well, because we talk a little bit about the future, specifically about the future workspace. And some of you might think, why is this guy on stage here talking about the future workspace? What does he know about it? And the reason why I talk about it is I'm with a company called Matrix42, and our DNA is actually provisioning workspaces today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. But before we get started into the topic, by the show of hands, who knows Matrix42? Okay. Then bear with me one commercial slide. So who am I? I'm the CTO at Matrix42, so I'm responsible for everything that is related to product strategy, product portfolio, extension of our product. And I have this nice job that I have the possibility to talk with our customers on a daily basis about their goals and what they want to do when it comes to end-user computing and workspace management. So who is Matrix42, and why should you know, from my point of view, should you know us? A couple of things about us. Number one is we are focused on something that we call workspace management. We are a software vendor, right? We provide software solutions that enable the future workspace. So some of you might think, what is the workspace by definition? Because there's several definitions out there. And for us, it basically means three things. Number one, technical management of a user's workspace. So think about software deployment, application deployment, access to data, provisioning of operating systems. That's where we have started more than 20 years ago. But the last 5-6 years, what became much more important for our customers and in the industry was what is about the business side of the workspace. So when users consume licenses, when they consume apps and data on devices, so how can you cross-charge and license those services? And the third piece is what we call the delivery method. So any kind of device that is out there might be a potential access to your workspace. Think about your laptop, your desktop, but obviously your mobile device, your virtual desktop that sits maybe in the cloud, or even in the future IoT-based devices or things that are actually happening in things like your car, etc. So the thing that I want you to take away and make you curious about is we are focused on the future workspace, and Gartner positions us 6 years in a row as a visionary in that space for a reason, and the reason I want to show you today. From a company perspective, we are roughly 300 people in size. We are doing business since 1992, and that you get a little bit an understanding about our customer base. We have customers like Puma, Infineon, ZF, BMW, etc., that trust our solutions. But enough of the commercial break. What I want to talk about is the future workspace and living services. And what living services means is I will explain during the speech. But I want to start with a data point. And that data point, that chart is actually out of the Internet Trend Report from Kleiner Perkins and Byers, actually from last year. But the reason why I bring up this chart is not to show you that mobile is big. You know that. You don't need me to tell you that. And that the way how users access digital content is changing from the big screen to smaller screens. But what I find quite interesting about this chart is On the one side, it highlights the PC and laptop is still there, and it will probably continue to be there for quite some time. Mobility is obviously increasing, right? But the yellow part that you see on the bottom is actually what you call other devices. Think about smart devices that are in your home, maybe things that are in your car, IoT-based devices, etc., connected devices in general. So we at Matrix42, we believe there's a lot of change happening when it comes to how business consumers, actually people in an organization, consume apps, data, and services. And the reason why we believe you guys should look at that change is described quite well from this gentleman. Wall Street Journal once wrote about him. He was and is the best CEO of all times. It's Jack Welch, the former CEO of General Electric. And he, in one of his first books, mentioned something, from my point of view, spot on. If change is happening on the outside faster than on the inside, the end is inside. And the reason why I love this quote and always communicate it to customers is, even if you think you have your end-user computing and workspace management strategy under control, think about what's happening out there. And think if you are moving fast enough to adopt to this change. So what's basically, and actually the change that we are seeing here? A big topic of this conference is digital transformation, right? And the question that we get at our booth quite often is, why is digital transformation also important for the workspace? And it's actually two things that I always communicate. Number one is, digitalization is everywhere, and everything is getting digitalized. So this basically means every business, frankly, is a digital business. Whether it's aviation, whether it's healthcare, whether it's manufacturing, logistics, everybody has to work with IT and with workspaces, with connected devices. So that's the one point. The second point about digitalization is, from paper to digital also means that any kind of service that was available, whether it was on paper, on checklists, etc., is now available as a digital format. The second thing I found quite more interesting even, digital transformation also creates something for especially workspace that I would call liquid expectations. So what is liquid expectations? It basically means that you experience a digital experience with some services. We heard about Uber, My Taxi, Hail a Cab, etc. And that kind of experience, how you consume a service, is something that you expect from other parts in your life as well. So that can be consumer services, but also how your workspace works. And I want to run you through a few examples that we see in terms of changing and liquid services and liquid experience that customers expect, that disrupted a complete industry. And I have 5 examples with me that I want to share with you. One we've already touched, I heard in the previous speech, is the change in taxi business and transportation. And we all know that was actually the past, and sometimes is still today, when we want to get a cab and a service that brings us from A to B. That was pretty much how it worked, right? But fast forward today, My Taxi and Uber are a pretty good example. Why? First of all, it disrupted, from my point of view, transportation business because of a few simple things. Number one, user context and simplicity was key. To actually get access to a service like transportation was never as easy as of today with an app. But the second thing is the user's context count. The app knows me. It knows my pattern. It knows my behavior. It knows where I am. I know exactly and see exactly how long that service takes until it arrives. So think about this also in a business consumer context. If you consume your apps, your data, your services on devices, this liquid experience is probably something that you also want to have within an organization, within the company. The second example is the change of video industry. I like to watch movies sometimes on the weekend. This was my life. You get into a movie store, you rent a movie, and it was actually very bad because a lot of people had the same idea if it was rainy out there and they wanted to see the same movie as you did. So we all know these shops are somehow history, right? As of today, it's services like Netflix, Hulu, whichever here in Germany that disrupted the complete industry. Because of what? streaming, right? I can consume the service, watching a TV show, where I am on which device. And it is a kind of seamless experience. Again, it's a liquid experience. I can start watching it on a TV and I can finish it before I go to bed on my mobile device without any big interruption. So again, when we talk about our clients, they talk about us, consuming a user's workspace should behave a little bit comparable like this. The other important piece is the music industry. I'm a music lover. I like to listen to music. My vinyl records as well as my CD collection is quite big. And then later on, my MP3 collection. But we all know consuming music was never as easy as of today if you think about services like Spotify. Why again? Because it's about streaming. It's about using the content on where I am. And what I really like about that service, it recommends me more things that fit to my pattern and to my music favorites, right? So again, a service that knows who I am, that knows what I like, and that probably knows what I want to listen to next, right? So, but also if we look at changes in the industry, and in different industry, and try to kind of find patterns that also disrupt maybe business services, I'm actually was looking at a service that helps me in some of my personal life things, not just entertainment stuff. And I'm a father of 2 children, and I'm blessed with a small boy, 18 months old, so I'm very experienced with this one here, right? With changing diapers. I'm a CTO. I'm looking at technology on a daily basis, and I try to find a way, how can I improve that process, right? So how can I identify if the child needs a new diaper? And I found actually this one here. And it's a prototype built from the University of Tokyo, where somebody had the idea to build an RFID chip within a diaper to identify, has the child a small business or a big business? Right? And the next evolution of this service is a push notification to your smartphone, right? That you can watch TV or you can sit in your home office and you get a little push notification that the baby needs changing of diapers for the mom or for the dad, right? The reason why I'm telling you this is probably a technology that won't see the reality near time soon, but there's a lot of technology out there that is helping to improve the way how we live, the way how we work. And the reason why I bring these funny examples is also to open up the mind. There is maybe technology out there that disrupts your business and the way how you manage your workspace. And the very last example is this product that I found a few years ago, actually, and they did something very clever with this product. They combined 2 things, a Segway, a mobility service, actually, with an iPad. And why was that? Because when you look at work pattern and behavior in companies at the moment, it's very likely that you have a kind of virtual experience. You have people that sit in an office and in a meeting room, and you have to dial people in. And we all know it's difficult to catch up on different topics in those meetings. So the idea was pretty much that you have a virtual avatar that you can remote control out of your home office, and you can actually join a meeting with your virtual avatar, and you can actually even go with your colleague to the coffee machine and have a chat after the meeting. So again, a funny example that I typically share to, again, show what is possible out there. So some of you might think, so what does this all have to do with future workspace, and what do all these examples have in common? And I want to open up here where I want to lead you to. The first thing is, each of those businesses, whether it was taxi transportation, whether it's video, etc., they were not really prepared for disruption of their business model. So think about when you're in an IT organization and you need to make sure that your users are productive. Are you really prepared of what's happening out there? The second thing is, that's for sure, mobility has changed everything. And why? First of all, simplicity is key. And the second thing is context is even more key. And context means the service knows who I am, what I do, where I am, on which device, on which location, with which bandwidth, etc. So that's quite important in the digital area, we believe. The other things, think about my Netflix Watch Ever example. Owning stuff loses importance. Streaming and consuming stuff with a flat fee is something that is quite normal for us in our personal lives. So let's transport this to our business lives as a business consumer, and a lot of times IT in a company works different here. And last but not least, the most important topic that you can learn from these examples is the service knows who I am. And it obviously helps me to get more productive and to achieve things more efficiently. Why? Because it knows me and hopefully can answer me questions before I've even asked them, right? So where do I want to go with this? This is what actually Accenture called a few months ago living services. And I really like this term, because what living services are is basically described with three things. It's proximity to you, so it's close to you. It has actually an impact on your life. We believe at Matrix42 there's a big change in end-user computing and workspace, so it has a real impact on lives. And the most important thing, it changes on real time. When I want a service, access to an app, access to data, access to my service desk, again, the service knows me and it changes based on the device where I'm or the location where I'm in. So what can IT management learn from this? Some of you might think, well, in an organization, this is different, right? But when I look at what we see at our customers, this was the service desk in the past. This is how actually end users, employees, accessed their IT department, right? Let's queue until, and let's wait until you're actually the one in line. So nowadays, we all know this is the expectation that people have. Access through a mobile device to IT services, and if I want help, and I want it now on the device where I'm on, plus I want the service, if I want to have a new service, I want to have it now, that helps me. So what's actually needed now to adopt to this change? We believe it's two things. Number one, I mentioned this already, it's knowing the customer. It's about customer experience. And the second thing is flex the technology. And what this basically means is that even if you have a current service management strategy, and if you have a mobility solution, and you have, I don't know, things that take care of single sign-on and identity and access management, you need to ask yourself, is this really prepared for the future workspace and for the living services area? And a few elements that we always discuss when it comes to the future workspace is actually this slide here. So compares again the past with what we see today and in the future. So let's talk about work in general. We all know work is not a place anymore, right? It's a thing that I do. And I can do it everywhere nowadays. And this is what customers, business consumers expect, right? Employees expect. So what do you need to do to achieve that? That work is not a place anymore? You need to provide access to the workspace on multiple devices. In the past, it was 1 or 2 devices. In the future, it's the desktop, the laptop, the mobile, the client, thin client, wearables, IoT-based devices, maybe your fridge, your oven, we don't know, right? Literally everything that has a screen can be a potential extension to my workspace that can display emails, that can access apps, etc. The second thing that I want to highlight here is this notion of app distribution. So we all know in the past, and in some customers as of today, is still about Windows applications. And Windows applications remain to be important. But what I want to highlight in this slide, what we see is this big trend that the application landscape gets extended, which means you have more applications, more diversity to deal with, and it's very likely that it's not the Windows applications that will grow exponentially. It's very likely that it's especially software as a service applications, web applications, and mobile applications. That's the reason why, from a management perspective, we believe you should address those new types of applications. The other thing that is quite important, and we get feedback from our customers, is ownership. Right? In the past, it was all about the company owns the device, distributes the device, the company rules, and knows exactly and decides what is happening on the device and what's not happening on the device. And there's this notion of BYO for years. We see this in a lot of customer projects outside the DACH region. But one thing is for sure, you have to have a management functionality from our point of view that can separate personal from corporate. And why is that important? Even if you're in a room and you say, in my organization, it's not allowed to give out personal devices, or that personal devices can access corporate services, I can give you from our experience the advice, even if you have a corporate device, there's one thing that is for sure. On that corporate device, something personal is happening. So you have BYOD inverted, if you ask me. So you have to still work on separating personal from corporate. So the last piece that I want to highlight on this slide is actually goals. And why is goals important? When I talked to CIO a few years ago about their workspace strategy, it was all about efficiency and costs. How can we reduce costs? How can we be more efficient? Fast forward to today, what we see is much more the focus about innovation. How can I provide the user workspace that learns about my employees, that can provision on-the-fly applications and data where they are when they work? It's about innovation. It's about a competitive advantage that I can provide as a business better services to my clients. So where I want to lead you to is, we talked a lot about technology, or I talked a lot about technology. And when we talk about the workspace, a lot of times we have this thinking, well, I do the same thing. Mobile is now coming, IoT, and I have SaaS and web applications. It's pretty simple. We just automate that stuff. How get users access to applications, data, and services? So it's pretty simple. And the reason I use this slide for a reason, every time when I talk to our customers about this, it's like that the customer is actually on a springboard and wants to jump into the water for his future workspace strategy. But what's happening all the time is, if you focus on automation, a lot of time it feels like this. It hurts. Why? Because automating a bad process is worse than having no automation. So we believe workspace management and providing a holistic workspace to your end users is more than just focusing on technical automation of apps, data, and services. You have to automate the process as well. So we talk IT service management, we talk license management, asset management, the complete asset lifecycle of a workspace. So the question now is, how should such a solution that enables that future workspace, that is not just focused on technology, is also focused on the business side of the workspace, look like? And what I like about analysts, they sometimes come up with great terms. And the one term that I like most in the last several years that describes how a management solution for the future workspace should look like and sound and be called is this one here. Gartner calls this a workspace aggregator, which basically means you have these different components out there, your devices, your apps, your services, your different application types, whether they are SaaS-based, Windows-based, or mobile. And you need to have a solution that is the glue in the middle that provides easy access to that workspace to end users, but at the same time gives the IT the ability to control, cross-charge that service. So we at Matrix42, we have used that workspace aggregator idea a few years ago, and we've built a solution around it that is focused about what we call the workspace 4.0. And I don't want to run through all these revolutions, but it's a little bit an analogy like to Industry 4.0, so that we see 4 very big shifts in when it comes to end-user computing and workspace. The one was driven through data center days and mainframe. The second was through PC revolution. It was a very device-centric view, managing devices. Where we're still in is the mobility revolution. And mobility created something interesting, this notion of a multi-device workspace. Think about yourself. It's very likely that you do not just have a mobile device or a laptop, so that you have multiple devices. And in the future, we believe any screen can be an extension to your workspace, so that problem will be extended. So you need to have a solution that provides device-independent access to your apps, your data, etc. But it does not end there. The era of living services means Workspace 4.0 has this notion of many different devices, many different application types, whether they sit in the cloud or on-premise, many different data points, many different identities, whether it's my Active Directory identity, my Google ID, etc., that needs to be managed, but also services in general. So we believe technology alone is not enabling the future workspace. We believe the cost element and the process side of things are very important to cover as well. So the elements that we see here that are most important are these ones. I touched the multi-device workspace. On the right-hand side, we believe you need an identity and access management solution to provide secure access to applications. And the interesting piece about this is, think about software as a service applications that a lot of customers are using and continue to use on a heavy scale. Think about, I don't know, Salesforce, Workday, even GoToMeeting is a SaaS app, etc. The business problem is the same. How can an end user get access to that app? But the technology in the background is completely different. All of a sudden, we talk authentication and authorization to services. So that's important. Self-service, IT service management and compliance, we believe this is part of an overall offering to enable the Workspace 4.0. I talked about app and desktop provisioning. And very important is also what's happening with your Excels, your PowerPoints, your data that you want to provide to different devices and users. But the most important thing is the left-hand corner. We believe this should all play in concert. A unique and holistic workspace management solution that covers all of this. Then you can enable the future workspace, and then you're prepared for the living services era. So, how does the future workspace then look like when we go beyond that? And I get that question quite often, and my answer is very honest, I don't know. And you don't know too, right? But I can have a few assumptions. And I'm playing sometimes with some ideas. The future workspace might look like this, that every screen is something that I can use to access email, apps, data, that I can use to get more productive. Yeah? Whether they're actually implemented in the car, in my oven, in my fridge, or traditionally on a big screen. It might look like this, yeah? More like a Google type of office, that you still work with multiple devices, but office and work is not a location anymore, that you can literally work from everywhere. It might be more cognitive, right? So that the workspace of the future knows more and more about you. I mentioned this already. Things that we might wear on our bodies, or something like this. This was actually a photo that we did last year during the CeBIT opening party with my CEO, Jochen Jasa, and myself, where they showed off their car for autonomous driving. And do you know what this is? This is actually a mobile device on wheels. It's a mobile device on wheels. It has a lot of technology, 60 independent computing systems included. So it needs management in the future, and it might be a place where you work in the future. So, in summary, how does the future workspace look like? A few assumptions. 3. First of all, we believe it will be more mobile, more distributed on different devices. Internet of Things, connected devices will become an extension to the workspace. If you haven't looked at it yet, you should do, because you need management in the future for it, that's for sure. The second thing, it will be more personal. Think about that term living service. A workspace that knows you. A workspace that knows your behavior. Think about my example with Watchever, with Netflix, or with Spotify, a service that knows you and that is close to you. And the third thing, we believe it will be more heterogeneous. The bad news is it won't get easier, right? It will be more diversity out there, and you need a management solution, we believe, that can control this diversity with connected apps, management of data, management of devices and services. So I want to end with actually a few recommendations that we give to customers when they rethink their workspace management and workspace strategy. The first one is, please don't look at the workspace in a siloed approach. So that you just say, I need to manage now mobility, let's invest in a mobility solution, it's just one silo that I have, it's done. We believe it should be a cross-functional team that you need to enable the future workspace. The second thing is, analyze user requirements properly. I think it's obvious, but we see a lot of projects where this is not happening. And most importantly, treat users like customers. And think about this. If your end users, your business consumers are treated like customers, it's a different mentality. How do you deal with customers? They are most important. You make sure that they have what they need when they need it. Learn from Shadow IT, define BYOD consumerization strategy, invest in a multi-platform mobility solution, we believe it's important, and self-service, self-service, self-service. Think about my taxi and Uber example. Customers and end users expect this now, that they consume the service when they want and how they want it. And the very last piece is, from our point of view, think about a holistic approach. And these acronyms stand for Enterprise Mobility Management, Client Management, Identity and Access Management as a Service, so to manage your SaaS apps, IT Service Management, and Software Asset Management. We believe this should play in concert to enable the future workspace. And with that, when we talk about the future workspace, I want to end actually with another of my favorite quotes. When you think about the future workspace and how the future looks like, and you ask all your colleagues and vendors like us how the future looks like, I typically tell them this. The best way to predict the future is to invent it, right? And that is a quote by Alan Kay, who kind of was a pioneer in object-oriented programming. And with that, I would like to end. Thank you very much.
Any questions relating to your business? Don't walk out thinking that, oh, gosh, why I didn't ask them that? I would have liked to know that for my business. In the meantime, what is your personal experience with the living services today?
I think I explained this a little bit. My personal experience was mainly driven from my consumer life. Spotify, My Taxi, Uber. Uber is an interesting example that they know a lot about you if you use it more often than My Taxi. But on the business side, it's pretty much about what we actually provide to our customers is a product called My Workspace that provides you the right apps on the right devices when you need it.
Any questions from you? Not now. Where can we find you?
It's actually, we are now, I forgot to mention this, we are in Hall 3, E18, you can't miss us. It's a big booth that says, stop managing devices, empowering people. Please come by, have a chat with us, and find out how the future workspace can be enabled with Matrix42.
Thank you very much, Oliver Bendig.
Thank you.